The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of This Week in the AFL. Alongside my co-host, Eric Watkins, I'm Stephen Err. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing okay. It's finally about that time of the year. It's been a very long, strange 18 weeks, to say the very least.
Yeah, it certainly has. Going into the season, we had expected the Washington Valor to do good things with the team they had. They wound up losing 10 games in a row after winning their first game of the season. And it just has been a good look for the expansion franchise. But then again, it is an expansion franchise, so I assume next year they'll improve for sure. But we talk week 18 now, the final week of the Arena Football League regular season. And speaking of the Valor and the Brigade, the two expansion teams for this year, both quarterbacks started different quarterbacks. Both teams started different quarterbacks in their respective games. Shane Boyd started for the Brigade against the Philadelphia Soul. And Warren Smith Jr., National Arena League MVP and former Lehigh Valley Steelhawks quarterback, started for the Valor. Again, who did they play? I don't even remember. This is terrible. I don't remember this. They played Tampa. That's right. Mm-hmm. Not Tampa. Cleveland. Huh.
No, Cleveland had the week 18 off.
That's right.
I'm going back and checking on this now because didn't Baltimore and Washington play each other in the final Beltway SmackDown of the season?
You're right. Okay. We're off to a bad start here in this week in the AFL, but as I'm always being told, there's room for improvement. So we start over here on This Week in the AFL. I'm Stephen Err. He's Eric Watkins. Both the Valor and Brigade started different quarterbacks in their game against one another. Warren Smith, former Lehigh Valley Steelhawks quarterback and National League MVP, started for Washington against Baltimore. And Shane Boyd started in place of Shane Carden, who was out for the season with a concussion. And, yeah, it was clear which quarterback was going to do better before we even got to this game. Before the game even started, we knew that Warren Smith, not a lot of people should watch the National Arena League season unfold from March to July 10th, which, by the way, the Sharks won the National Arena League title. Nobody saw the National Arena League. Nobody knew what to expect from Warren Smith. But Warren Smith won the MVP, and there was a reason for it. So going in, I at least knew that he would be the better quarterback than Shane Boyd would be. He proved it in this game.
Well, not to mention from what we haven't seen from Warren Smith Jr. You hit the nail on the head. All of his film is in the National Arena League. Yes, won a MVP vote over the likes of Derek Ross, but at the same time, people are questioning things like the level of talent in the NAL, the scheduling, etc., etc., etc. So when you go up against AFL talent, it's a completely different game. However, combine that with what we have seen in Shane Boyd. We saw it earlier with Baltimore, after Carden left with a concussion. We've seen it in Cleveland. We've even seen it in Arizona. Baltimore was in a little bit of a tough situation, having to go to him. That automatically gave the advantage to the Valor, and with Smith's dynamic style of play, that made it even better.
Yes, and unfortunately for Baltimore, according to what I've read, Coach Omar Smith has announced Shane Boyd will start for the Baltimore Brigade against the Philadelphia Soul this coming Saturday in their playoff game. So good luck to Baltimore, good luck to Philadelphia. It's going to be an exciting game, I'm sure. We'll get to that later, though. I want to to this game right now. We got Valor and the Brigade met for the fourth time this year, the final of the season. And Washington was the team that got off to a hot start. Remember, we were saying that Washington wasn't going to win this game because of how they had played and all this. And all of a sudden, bam, they're up to 14-0 like that. But, Eric, Baltimore did not go away. They scored, and Var Masomi picked off a Warren Smith pass in the end zone and took it all the way for a touchdown to tie the game at 14. So this was to start off a very competitive game, not what we were expecting going in.
Well, Baltimore knew that they had with Varmasoni an extremely capable defense. They showed at their best when they pulled off the upset against Philadelphia, and with what happened when these two teams last met, that game ended in a Hail Mary. So I expected a little bit of an offensive struggle. However, Baltimore did themselves even one better. They knew Boyd was going to have issues getting points on the board, so the defense did it themselves. That's what kept them in it while they were trying to figure out how to stop Warren Smith Jr.
Yeah, they could stop. The Baltimore Brigade could not stop Warren Smith Jr. Outside of that interception, another one from Barmasoni at the end of the game, later in the game. Smith finished with 4 touchdown passes and 1 rushing touchdown. Very impressive for an NAL quarterback coming into the AFL. We'll see him next year in the AFL. But as you said, this was like the last game on July 22nd. These two teams met, and they're on a Hail Mary. At this game, I don't know if you watched, Eric, but I did. Controversy at the end. So the Valor lead 41-35, and when as time expired, Reggie Gray caught a touchdown pass, but the pass was reviewed, later called incomplete. Did you watch that game, Eric? Did you see that play?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, and I tried to catch the highlights and the different angles on Twitter, but there was nothing really conclusive. So I kept looking through and trying to figure out what happened, why the play was overturned, and I couldn't see anything. Was it a position of being out of bounds, juggling? What it was, unfortunately, we're not going into video here at ITA until at least 2019, which I cannot wait for that. I'm looking forward to that forever now. What it was Reggie Gray dives for the ball in the end zone. It appears he caught it, but the refs call it incomplete. So, the Baltimore Brigade might have gotten a little, I don't know how to word it. I don't want to say they got screwed over by the refs, but the refs obviously weren't seeing something right, because that looked like a catch to me, it looked like a touchdown. And with the extra point, Baltimore would have closed out the regular season with a win. Unfortunately, called incomplete, and on the next play, the Valor defense knocked the ball away, clinching their 41-35 victory, sending the Brigade into the playoffs with a loss, and to the 4th seed. Now, again, it would have been much better had the refs ruled that a touchdown. Again, extra points never a sure thing, so there's still that little bit of a what-if scenario. But say they do kick it, they go on to win. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to play Tampa Bay. That is incredible momentum. However, in these situations, you don't want to leave it in the hands of the referees. We've seen this happen before. We just witnessed it happen again. And when you're reaching out and diving for a ball on the ground, if there's any sliver of doubt, hands underneath, you see a bounce, nose of the football's pointing one way, new moon versus full moon, raining and the wind's blowing in a different direction, the referees can easily see one thing or another.
This is another thing that I thought of when I watched this game, and I realized that Warren Smith had started over Sean Brackett. I realized this is it. Sean Brackett's not returning next year to the Valor. They're going to look for a new quarterback. And I don't know how much you pay attention to smaller leagues, Eric. I pay attention to them very little. There is one guy that sticks out to me that could definitely start for them next year. It's not Warren Smith Jr. I feel Warren Smith is going back to Lehigh Valley for the NAL season in 2018. There's a guy, his name is Chris Dixon. Do you know that name, Eric?
Yes, he played for Orlando and New Orleans a few years ago.
Chris Dixon just won the Champions Indoor Football title. I don't remember which team it was for, but I believe this guy's won multiple indoor football title games. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that maybe Washington gives him a call and says, "Hey, why don't you come play for us in 2018?"
Can I offer a little bit of a rebuttal to that?
Sure thing, go ahead.
And the reason why I think it will be at least an interesting battle with Warren Smith Jr., seeing how he plays in that style, and seeing what I could see of the Beltway SmackDown, I noticed he's got that sense of the pocket, willingness to scramble, willingness to run like I see in Arvell Nelson of Cleveland. Now, if this is going to be the new wave of quarterbacks that will be incorporated into the new game, trying to create better offensive strategy for a variety of reasons, I think Warren Smith Jr. has the lead. Chris Dixon, while he's got a good arm, while he is talented, one thing I noticed offenses always switch to. Orlando did this, New Orleans did this. They had to work out of the shotgun. Those are the only times in all of my viewing of arena football that I've seen a team use the shotgun. While that can work for a couple of games, I don't know if you can rely on that over the course of a season. Now, if a team like Washington wants to do that, they would have plenty of time to practice and work through it through the off season. However, if push comes to shove and they're trying to get him to be more under center, that's going to be very telling to see how far that talent really lies.
So you think that there's a possibility that Warren Smith Jr. does stay in the Arena Football League for 2018?
Absolutely.
Ooh, that would be definitely interesting to see. Had Washington made the playoffs, I'm sure he would have done well against any team he had played against. So maybe, the indoor football world is crazy at times. So there's always something different happening you never expected. So we'll see what happens probably sometime next year during the free agency period. Now I want to get to the second game, which, to no one's surprise, was not as exciting as everyone thought it would be. The Soul and the Storm. Philadelphia took care of the Tampa Bay for the third time this year, I believe. It's the third time. There was just one mishap from Philadelphia the whole game. Other than that, perfect football, flawless football from the whole team. And that one flaw was Ryan McDaniel fumbled at the goal line, which Tampa Bay recovered. But, of course, they couldn't do anything with it. Like they couldn't do much all night long against this Philadelphia defense.
Oh, to be fair, and we talked about this over the last couple of weeks, you didn't see all the star players for the full 60 minutes.
That's right.
I mean, Joe Hills got his touchdown. Randy Hibbert had a couple of series. His night was done. So I give credit to both teams for playing it smart, knowing that they're going to be playing in a week's time anyway for when it matters more than ever. So it was to be expected, as you said.
And speaking of, this is one of the notes I had for tonight's show. Like you said, you said last week, we would possibly see backups play, and we did for both teams. Let me check my notes here. Who played? Chris Bonner stepped up for Tampa. He did pretty well. He did very well. And Luke Collis, who played with Clint Dolezal in the CAFL last October, also stepped up. And what I found interesting was watching this game. Chris Bonner's first pass, touchdown. Luke Collis' first pass, touchdown. I was like, wow. That was just something very interesting. But Bonner, I liked what I saw with Bonner. He got to a very fast start, very good start. And he finished 15-26, 227, 4 touchdowns. That's not terrible.
No, not at all, especially for your first significant action in quite some time. He had a very good handle on the offense, and say if anything else were to happen to Randy Hibbert, there would not be much of a drop-off. Now, unless there's some sort of expansion, I don't see Bonner getting a starting job in the AFL right away, but very, very capable backup quarterback, which is now becoming even more paramount in this league.
Yeah, I'm not expecting, and I've seen people say this before, we can expect expansion for next year. I'm not expecting anything out of like that, but we will see what happens. Again, the offseason is always crazy in the indoor football world. Nonetheless, the playoff picture is now set, Eric. The Philadelphia Soul will host the Baltimore Brigade, and the Tampa Bay Storm will host the Cleveland Gladiators. In this year's playoffs, and ArenaBowl 30 will be played August 26th at 7 Eastern Time. By the way, we found out the game will be on AFL Now, ladies and gentlemen. So get those paid subscriptions ready.
I mean, I like the fact that they're doing something, but there's a part of me that feels that the AFL is still sort of dropping the ball. I get that it would be too late to scramble something to get it on broadcast TV, but it seems like the Twitter experiment is going quite well. Why not take advantage of it? It's major disservice, and if you want to add to the off-season craziness a little bit of a negative perception, just like the Turkish butcher, sprinkling that salt, there it is.
Yes. It is definitely a disservice to Arena Football fans, because I've seen a lot of people complaining that they will not pay to watch the Arena Bowl, so you can expect ratings to be down. But for those that do watch it, August 26th, 7 p.m. Eastern, on AFL Now and ArenaFootball.com. Coming up next, Tim Capper of ArenaFan joins us. You are listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an Arena Football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back to This Week in the AFL. Alongside Eric Watkins, I'm Steven Aaron. Now joining us here on This Week in the AFL is the man behind ArenaFan, Tim Capper. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good, and I cannot take all the credit for ArenaFan. I mean, we do have another owner. It's not me, but we're a bunch of dedicated guys who've been doing this for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah, ArenaFan is the top arena football website out there on the market today, as far as I'm concerned. But let's talk some arena football now. Going into the season, I don't know about Eric. I'm pretty sure Eric feels the same way, and so does my team at ITA. We all expected the Valor to do great things. They had Eric Meyer, he had won an MVP. I believe he won an ArenaBowl title. Mike Washington had been impressive. T.T. Tolliver is going to the Hall of Fame one day. Mm-hmm. Tracy Belton came on the team after winning the ArenaBowl with the Soul. So what do you feel happened in Washington that they went from super team to stupor team?
Well, you have to understand, and anybody who's following the Arena Football League for a while knows that you can go as far back as, remember the old Dallas Desperados team was 15-1, and then they ended up getting knocked off in the playoffs by Columbus. Sometimes your team can be as good as you are on paper, but once you're on the field, you're not so good. So I got a feeling that's what happened with DC. I mean, I'm sure it's a combination of things. You lose one of your assistant head coaches, midway through the year, go on a 10-game losing streak. Maybe they just didn't gel as much as everybody thought they were going to. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason to see what exactly happens for that one of the two teams owed by Ted Leonsis.
Now, going from one of the teams of Ted Leonsis to the other of Baltimore, as you had mentioned on paper, everybody looked at them, myself included, and figured they're going to be at a much more significant disadvantage. Had to cobble the team together much quicker, get the staff, get ready, settle everything with Royal Farms Arena. How were they able to do as well as they did, where Washington, with the extra time, with the extra pieces in place, weren't?
Now, I think when you look at the Brigade, I think they were very lucky to have not only with Coach Omar Smith, because obviously with him having the extensive playing career and head coaching career just recently over in LA, but they happened to come across a kid, obviously, as Shane Carden, who is right now he is one of the front runners to be Rookie of the Year. They were just lucky enough to get them, and I think it goes to what I was mentioning before about DC. Sometimes you don't look so good on paper. They can surprise you. And I think that's exactly what they did. So it was a combination of Carden being able to get together with Reggie Gray, a bunch of just a sprinkle of veterans here, a little bit of rookies here. It's just worked out. I mean, they finished a game ahead better than DC, but I still think that of both of these two teams that the Monumental owns, Baltimore was the better of the two teams. Even if Baltimore had not gotten to the playoffs, I think still Baltimore, to me, is still one of the better teams considering the short span of time that they took them to, as you mentioned, to get the team up and running.
Shane Carter now for the season with a concussion. He suffered in the second to final game of the season. I have a feeling he has to be the clear-cut winner to win Rookie of the Year, but there possibly is others. Tim Capper joining us here on this week in the AFL. Let's talk some Storm football, because they went from 2-14 to what are they? 12-3, 15-3, something like that.
The Storm were 10-4 this year, and it's what a turnaround. I mean, it's again, a lot of people have said that you look at it's a smaller league this year. It's going to be a horrible league. As we can see, that's not really the case. I mean, right. Coach James was able to turn this team around. Smaller teams equal all these players from other teams are coming together. To me, it made better football. Coach James was able to do what they needed to do. Plus, on top of it, Joe Hills, Kendrick Ings, Hippard as their QB. It just gelled. It was just a matter of what could they not do this year, and everything seemed to go right, except obviously when it came to playing the Philadelphia Soul. But
right.
And I kind of want to touch on Joe Hills, because the touchdown streak, he owns the record, still going. Really, that extra piece, one of many extra pieces that Tampa Bay didn't have on offense. But we also saw in the brief time what they were able to do without him. With the whole mess, what happened, him going to Jacksonville, playing in the NAL, coming back. And I wanted to ask, what was the mindset of the Storm and really the AFL as a league as that situation was developing?
From what I've seen, it really is what it was. I mean, there was talk of the team fully supporting what Joe was doing. I mean, that's just through what I have heard. Coach James got them into a mindset of, what? He's not here. Whatever the reason is, we have the players available to us in order to continue, and they did. It was just something that Joe decided that he needed to do. He did his time, so to speak, with the suspension, and he came back and continued the streak. So I guess it's just a matter of how fans look at Joe Hills because he did just what he did. Would he be deserving of a year-end award because of what he did? Is his streak tainted because of what he did? It's just a matter of opinion. I think the streak is fantastic. I've been following this streak since it started. And do I think that he should be eligible to be for a year-end award? Yeah, I really think I do. I think he should get an award. Just don't know which one it'll be.
It's funny you bring up year-end awards. I'm probably the one that thinks this. Dan ArenaBowl has not had the best season of his career. A lot of overthrown passes, off-target passes. He's thrown 10 picks now. A lot of people are saying that he should win MVP, but I feel like Randy Hippert has played better football despite having more losses for the Storm, and that's because of the soul. If it was down to these two quarterbacks, which do you feel should win the MVP this year?
It's really tough when you look at it. I mean, we've seen years before where the league has gone with co-head coaches of the year, etc. It's just a matter of opinion. I mean, which quarterback really made the difference based on what he currently had? Both quarterbacks really could fit that bill very easily. For me, though, I mean, just looking at it, based on how much, how important a quarterback is to a team, and how he was able to do what he did, I would give a slight edge to Randy Hippert. I'm sure Soul fans out there would be saying no, but it is just my opinion. I think Randy Hippert, to me, would be a front runner, just slightly over Dan ArenaBowl.
Now, to kind of throw in a little bit of a wrinkle with that, we've seen in past years, it's always been the best quarterback wins MVP, second best quarterback wins Offensive Player of the Year. Do you think that with not just quarterback play, but the quality of receivers in this league because of it this season, do you think a receiver or any other non-quarterback can break through and win one of those two awards?
Well, my question back to you guys would be is, of the quarterbacks, of the wide receivers that are eligible besides Joe Hills, who would you choose? You really can't choose a Quentin Sims because he really did not play a full season, and it sort of goes back to what happened to Randy Hippert when he was quarterback for the Predators. He got hurt. He was one of the main runners for MVP. He got hurt. He did not win MVP, even though I would have voted for him as an MVP. The way that it's been going, usually you would put a wide receiver of the year and an offensive player of the year for a wide receiver. It just seems, unless that a wide receiver really stood out, that it would get that other award. But you know what? I think it will be a wide receiver. It will not go to a quarterback. I'm trying to remember a time, if there ever has been, that the league's been giving out these certain type of awards where there has been two quarterbacks. It's going to be the same thing when it comes to the all-arena teams. It's going to be tough to choose which one. If you have an MVP in a specific quarterback, do you put him as a second-team MVP, second-team all-arena? It's a very tough situation, especially this year.
Yeah, a lot of things are tough this year with being a 5-team league. I want to switch over to the Gladiators now. They had me scratching my head when they released Arvell Nelson after the first week of training camp. What were your thoughts on that when that happened?
Well, I think really Coach Selesky needed to do what he needed to do, and he felt that at the time that having Tanner Marsh and at the time Shane Boyd under center was the quarterbacks that he was going to be able to go with. Unfortunately, there was a kind of a wrinkle thrown into him which has happened many a time to many teams. A lot of injuries popped up. They needed somebody on the defensive side. Arvell Nelson was brought back. I really think, and this is just an opinion, maybe I'm a little bit of a homer because of this and the history with Tanner Marsh. I think if Tanner Marsh had been given the chance throughout the year, I think he would have been a great quarterback, and we would not be throwing Arvell Nelson into the talk when it comes to of one of the better quarterbacks this year. So it's injuries can kill a team, and you all, both of you know this. So it just so happened that they were able to get better at a time. Unfortunately, at that point, it really was too little, too late. But we're now within the playoffs, and almost anything can happen.
And before you get your next question, I want to say that was a very hot take. You believe that Tanner Marsh could have been a great quarterback. I like that take a lot. I'm looking into that during the offseason. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really do. I really do. It's I think if he had more than just one game, it was, his first start as in the Arena League as a quarterback did not go very well. His O-line didn't help. He himself got hurt. I think if he had the chance, I think he would have done very, very well.
And actually, my next question kind of leads into that, because you've seen Shane Boyd. You've seen him quite a long time in Arizona. You saw him this year in Cleveland and in Baltimore. Do you think that with Shane Boyd's performance or experience, that's what gave him an advantage over Tanner Marsh?
I really don't know. It may have just been a factor of, was Tanner ready to be a starter in the AFL? Maybe Coach Zaleski had another idea in his head. It's just something had to be done at that time. Was Tanner ready? Not necessarily. Again, we've seen this in pro football where a quarterback goes down and another one pops up and they become a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady. As much as I hate to say it, Tom Brady.
That makes two of us.
Yeah, same thing in the CFL. With Jonathan Jennings and Travis Lulay. It's happening again right now. So it's just about, it doesn't necessarily mean that Shane Boyd was the better quarterback, because look where he ended up being in Baltimore. I guess at that time, Coach Zaleski felt that that was the choice to make. And we can all be Monday morning quarterbacks to question it, but I'm sure he had his reasons.
So you and I are part of a lot of the same Arena Football League Arena Football Facebook groups, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, the AFL is a joke" and all that. Obviously, I don't agree with believe that, because we follow it, we cover it, and all that. But here's just something that I'm not buying, and Ted Leonsis has said it. I've heard different players say it. Expansion for 2018 could possibly happen. I don't see it happening. Do you feel like there could be new teams next year?
It's tough. Usually we would hear something somewhere around ArenaBowl, and obviously that's a couple of weeks down the line. Right. I think the biggest factor this year, and maybe why we haven't heard anything, is because of the CBA and its expiration at the end of September. Maybe teams are waiting to see what happens with the CBA, how much they agree on, et cetera, et cetera. Expansion, I think, should be a must. I think the league does need to get up to at least 8 teams for next season. For all we know, like we've had before, even though like DC, they had a year to get ready. Maybe there are some ownership groups that are out there. They have been going for an X period of time. We just don't know about it. So as long as we get to a point where we don't have to worry about a Las Vegas and them coming in like they did at a short period of time, I think that hurt them. I think Baltimore is not in that situation, obviously, because how well they were run. But I'd like to have it. Does it mean we're going to get it? No, but I think we do need it as a league. And let's get some more exciting football and with these extra teams in 2018.
And of course, speaking here with Tim Capper, one of the top brass at ArenaFan. Very well done podcast as well. I myself have been a follower for quite some time. And you kind of led me to an interesting point, as we've had previous conversations with Mike Washington, and he kind of teased how the league is as far as the single entity model, things of that nature, sort of the behind the scenes from the office standpoint. Now, you mentioned the expiration of the CBA. Always a hot button with any league when it comes to negotiating contracts, and especially with what happened a few years ago where you had the players' strike, or whatever you want to call it, that first week of the season.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as some of the talking points, or what should be the talking points for this CBA, given where the league is?
I think number one and foremost is salaries. You are getting a starting quarterback and get approximately, I think it's $1,200 if he does start per week. Without that, a veteran player would get, I think it's around $800 a week. So I think it's going to be salaries. It's going to be if there is a cap, how will it work? Maybe they decide to let the teams sign players rather than the league assign them themselves. Out of everything, guys, it's salaries, because without a livable wage, these players may not want to go to X team on wherever they're going to be and play for this owner. They need a reason to play and have a livable wage. I mean, we're not going to get to the point of 2008 again. There's no way we're going to have six-figure salaries.
I hope not.
There's no way. But, make it on par with what the CFL is. The CFL is making, I think it's just shade over 51,000 for this season, for the 2017 season. So if you get it on par with that, I think you're doing pretty good. So that way you can actually have a true free agent come in and say, I want you to play for us. And it's, being involved in a union myself where I currently work, it is interesting. Sometimes you just don't want to hear about it, but it's money, guys. I think really it's all that's going to be is about money. And it's just a matter of what the PU and the league can come together and agree upon and sign a new deal. And let's hope the deal is anywhere between 5 to 7 years. Let's hope. That's
all we can do is hope
for that one.
Yeah.
Tim Capper, one of the top guys in ArenaFan, host of the AFL Today with Jim Robinson, and host of Alouettes on Deck, a Montreal Alouettes podcast. Last question, we're running out of time here. Last question. Who do you have playing in ArenaBowl 30? And who do you have winning ArenaBowl 30 this year?
Based on from what I'm seeing, as my co-host and I, Jim, were talking about in this past week's episode, I mean, just based on the two matchups, I mean, for me, I think it is going to be in Philadelphia.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think it is going to be in Philadelphia. I think it's just a matter of when it comes to the Tampa Bay game, Tampa Bay has the upper hand, obviously, with the wide receivers, I think, and the quarterback. But if Cleveland is able to play a perfect game, they might have a chance, but with all honesty, I think it's going to be a Tampa Bay, Philadelphia ArenaBowl 30. And as far as who's going to win, see, that's tough, because the matchups can vary from week to week. Philadelphia has been taking care of teams left, right, and center this year, but as we've seen this year, you can have many surprises. You can have a league that, even though teams are 13-1, and you have a team that's only won 3 games this year, but there's been parity. So it just shows anything can happen. So I'm gonna leave my choice for ArenaBowl up in the air, but I think it will be Tampa and Philadelphia.
Oh, he's leaving us with the cliffhanger. I like that. Tim Capper of Arena. Go ahead, Eric. You're saying?
Well, I was going to say, we call that a deep tease here in the business.
Yes.
Tim Capper of ArenaFan, you are awesome. We'll definitely have to have you on the week before ArenaBowl. Thank you for joining us tonight, though. Good stuff.
Oh, it was my pleasure, guys, and I enjoy the show, and I hope to talk to you guys very soon.
Definitely.
Sir, thank you very much. All right, Eric and I will be right back here on This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at DonJamesSports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football to the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back, everybody, to This Week in the AFL. Alongside Eric Watkins, I'm Stephen Err. I am very happy from what I just heard from Tim Capper. He was awesome. I want to thank him once again for coming on and joining us. It's very good stuff from him. Now it is time to preview the playoffs, Eric. Now let's start with the game nobody cares about, really. It's going to be the Seoul Brigade game is obviously going to be the less exciting game because, well, let's face it, last time these two teams met, the Seoul dominated Baltimore, and they're starting the same quarterback, Shane Boyd, as I said earlier in the Shark podcast. Baltimore will be starting Shane Boyd against the Seoul this Saturday in their playoff game. ArenaBowl is going against Shane Boyd, who started one game before being benched at the beginning of the season. So that just tells you right there, this is not going to be pretty.
No, and if Shane Carden were starting, I know ifs and buts, candy, nuts, blah, 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 then I would go back to that game where the Brigade pulled off the upset. However, two things. Shane Carden did not have a concussion. That game was in Baltimore. Now you're going up to Philadelphia. And Shane Boyd, let's face it, he's been in playoff games and pressure situations in this league, but not as a starter. Normally he's coming in after Nick Davala's done his thing and he mops up. So this is going to tell where his head really is and how capable he really is. And with Philadelphia's defense ready to go, trying to repeat and maybe potentially create some sort of other curse on this league, some sort of hex or what have you, it's not going to be pretty.
And we're going to have an article launched. I believe it'll be the same time the podcast is launched tomorrow. Is there a chance that the Baltimore get upset the Soul? There are a few things that could possibly happen, like ArenaBowl struggles, which he hasn't done in the past month at least. It could be Varmasomi. He could step up and, intercept some ArenaBowl passes, which I don't see happening at all, if any. But there's a few things that say maybe Baltimore can upset the Soul, but in the end, yeah, the Philadelphia Soul are going to host ArenaBowl 30, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if I could plot out a game plan for Baltimore to at least be able to keep it close, like if they're within 7 at the end of the first quarter, or if they're within 2 scores at, say, halftime, I would be like, you know what? You could do this and make these adjustments in the second half. But I can't even plot that plan to keep it close. Because even if ArenaBowl struggles, Shane Boyd can struggle even more. So, looks like your dream trip to Philadelphia will be on for ArenaBowl 30, and I'm going to have to wait another year for my Tampa shenanigans.
Either way, if the games winds up being in Tampa, I'm gonna have some fun. My father lives down in Tampa, staying probably with my aunt, because if I stay with my dad's girlfriend, it might not be too well. But anyway, we're gonna save that for another podcast, possibly. But we've said this multiple times here on This Week in the AFL. This could be one of those games where it's 21-0 before you can snap your fingers, and I feel like, then obviously, this feels like it could be that type of game.
And again, I believe this is the one, the televised semifinal,
Yes, the Baltimore Brigade Philadelphia Soul playoff game will be on CBS Sports Network at 4 on Saturday.
The league made another mistake.
Yes,
I hate to say it, but the CBS Sports Network, you picked the wrong game for this weekend. Oh well.
They really did. So I don't even have to ask. We know both Eric and I have the Soul winning, blowout fashion, hosting the Arena Bowl August 26th at 7 Eastern on AFL Now and ArenaFootball.com. Now we go over to the game that everybody likes to hear. The game that I'm excited for sure. The Storm and the Gladiators. Both these teams have played the best games of the year this year. Mm-hmm. It started week 3. The Storm overcame a 27-7 deficit to win in the final seconds. Then there was that game in Cleveland. I believe it was Joe Hill's first game back. He scored a touchdown with no time left to bring Storm within 2 after they overcame a 34-13 deficit. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they couldn't get this 2-point conversion, lose the game. But we are in for a classic playoff game. This kind of reminds me of last year when the Orlando Predators played the Jacksonville Sharks. We are in for one of those type of games come Monday. I can't wait.
Me neither. And if anybody was looking for an upset, yes, we've seen what Washington was able to do. We saw what Baltimore was able to do. But if Cleveland plays that perfect game, and Tim Capper, he mentioned this, Cleveland could win. Now, it comes down to who is going to take advantage of those couple extra days, as the game is on a Monday night, to prepare. I'm giving Tampa the edge because I've been sticking with them the entire season. They haven't let me down. But if Cleveland does win and heads up to Philadelphia, I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
No, I wouldn't be either. I don't even know if we can call this an upset because both teams are so talented on both sides of the ball. But I like you, Eric. I do give the Storm the edge just because of the receivers they have and the quarterback that they have. Cleveland doesn't have the same type of wide receiving core. They do have a talented one, but I've said this before on former episodes of this podcast. I mean, Quentin Sims is on IR. He's out for the season. Colin Taylor's not putting up the same numbers he did last year. It's just not that they're not as talented as Tampa Bay is. Hence why they've shown weakness against Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. And again, just like Philadelphia, we expect them to get off to a hot start. With these two teams, it's who gets off to that hot start, but who can keep it up. If a team were to jump out to a 14-21 point lead, they have to put their foot on the gas. And personally, with Tampa Bay's receiving core and the fact that they've had consistency throughout the season, with the Joe Hills, with the Kendrick Kings, with the Lamar Brown, there's your top 3. Tampa Bay is more capable to do that. Cleveland, you cannot piecemeal a receiving threat and a passing game in the playoffs. You're likely to get burned.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Both Eric and I have the Storm and the Soul in Arena Bowl 30 on August 26th at 7 Eastern Time. The game would be played at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. If I'm correct, this is our final hour show of the season. Mm-hmm. Next week we have a half-hour show, and the week after we have 4 episodes, half-hour each, leading up to Arena Bowl 30, talking about different things such as awards, previewing the game, future of the AFL, and all this other good stuff. You will not want to miss it. So that is going to do it for us here. I want to thank once again Tim Capper of ArenaFan.com, host of the AFL Tonight with Jim Robinson, for joining us. I want to thank you, Eric, for being my co-host once again on the show and producing this podcast. I want to thank you, the listeners, for listening. Whether you're listening on W2Mnet.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play, or wherever else this podcast may be available, thank you for listening. And until next week, enjoy playoff weekend. I'm going to Baltimore Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. And, yeah, we will see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.